What if I told you that the things people criticize you for might actually be signs of exceptional intelligence? That messy desk your coworkers complain about? That habit of talking to yourself everyone thinks is strange? That tendency to stay up until 3 in the morning that your family nags you about? Here's what nobody wants to admit. Genius doesn't look like what we've been told. It's not about sitting quietly, following rules, and fitting into neat little boxes. Real intelligence is messy. It's weird. It's unconventional. And the behaviors that mark someone as truly gifted are often the exact same behaviors that get labeled as problems. Society has this image of the brilliant person. Organized, disciplined, socially graceful, perfectly balanced. But that's fiction. That's what average people think genius should look like. The reality? Many of the smartest people throughout history were absolute disasters by normal standards. Chaotic. Odd. Socially awkward, following patterns that made no sense to anyone around them. And here's the uncomfortable truth. If you have certain weird habits that people mock or don't understand, you might be operating at a level most people can't even comprehend. Your brain might be working in ways that seem strange simply because it's working better, faster, more creatively than the average person's. What you're about to discover might explain a lot about yourself. Those quirks you've tried to hide, those behaviors you've been told to fix, they might be exactly what makes you exceptional. Time to stop apologizing for being different and start recognizing what those differences actually mean. 1. You talk to yourself, out loud, constantly. Let's start with the habit that probably makes people look at you like you're losing it. You talk to yourself. Not just in your head like everyone does, but out loud. Full conversations. Sometimes you're working through a problem. Sometimes you're rehearsing what you're going to say. Sometimes you're just narrating your own thoughts. And people definitely notice. They think it's weird. They might joke about it or ask if you're okay. Some people genuinely worry that talking to yourself is a sign of something being wrong with you. But here's what they don't understand. What looks like madness to them is actually your brain operating at a higher level than theirs. When you talk to yourself out loud, you're not just thinking. You're engaging multiple parts of your brain simultaneously. You're processing thoughts verbally, hearing them auditorily, creating a feedback loop that actually enhances cognitive function. This isn't speculation. Research has shown that people who talk to themselves out loud perform better on tasks, remember information more accurately, and solve problems more effectively. Think about what happens when you keep thoughts internal. They're fluid, changeable, easy to lose track of. But when you speak them out loud, they become concrete. You hear them. You process them differently. You catch errors in your own logic that you might have missed if the thoughts stayed silent. You're essentially debugging your own thinking in real time. This is why so many brilliant people throughout history were known for talking to themselves. Einstein did it. Tesla did it. They weren't crazy. They were using verbal processing to enhance their already exceptional mental abilities. When your brain is working on complex problems, sometimes you need to externalize the thinking process to keep track of everything. It's also about focus. When you're talking through something out loud, you're forcing yourself to articulate clearly. You can't be vague or hand-wavy like you can with internal thoughts. You have to actually form coherent sentences, which requires deeper processing. This makes you think more carefully and precisely about whatever you're working on. People with average intelligence don't need this tool as much. Their thoughts are simpler, easier to track internally. But when you're juggling multiple complex ideas, considering various angles, holding several threads of reasoning in your mind at once, talking out loud becomes a valuable external memory and processing aid. There's also the rehearsal aspect. You play out conversations before they happen. You practice how you'll explain something. You work through different ways of presenting an idea. This isn't insecurity. This is your brain running simulations, testing different approaches, optimizing communication. You're thinking several steps ahead about how interactions might go. Most people don't do this because they don't need to. Their thoughts are straightforward enough that they can just speak spontaneously without much planning. But when you're operating with more complex ideas, more nuanced understanding, more awareness of how communication can go wrong, you need that rehearsal time. The interesting thing is how self-conscious this habit makes people. You've probably caught yourself doing it and felt embarrassed. You've probably tried to stop. but you keep coming back to it because it genuinely helps you think. Your brain has figured out a tool that works, even if society tells you it's weird. And here's the thing about genius-level thinking. It's often invisible to other people. They can't see inside your head. They can't see the complexity of what you're processing. So when they see the external manifestation, the talking to yourself, it looks odd. They don't have the context to understand why you're doing it. This connects to broader patterns of how intelligent people interact with the world differently. You need strategies that others don't. You process information in ways that seem unnecessary to people operating at a different level, and that often makes you look strange. But while you're talking to yourself during the day, there's probably another habit that really sets you apart from most people. 2. You stay up late when everyone else is asleep. While everyone else is asleep by 11, you're wide awake at 2 in the morning. You've tried to fix this. You've set earlier bedtimes. You've read all the sleep hygiene advice, but you keep ending up awake late into the night, and honestly, that's when you do your best thinking. Society loves morning people. There's this whole culture around waking up early being virtuous and successful. You hear about CEOs waking up at 5 a.m., about the importance of morning routines, about how productive mornings are. And that works for some people, just not you. Your brain comes alive when the sun goes down. Here's what's actually happening. Your circadian rhythm is different. Not wrong, different. Studies have shown that people with higher intelligence tend to have later chronotypes. They naturally feel alert and focused later in the day and into the night. This isn't laziness or poor discipline. This is biology. But it's more than just biology. There's something about nighttime that creates the perfect environment for deep thinking. The world is quiet. Nobody's trying to contact you. There are no interruptions, no expectations. The pressure of the day is gone. Your brain can finally stretch out and work without constant interference. During the day, there's too much noise. Not just literal noise, though, that's part of it. But mental noise. People wanting things from you. Tasks that need doing. A million small distractions pulling your attention in different directions. For a mind that's capable of deep focus and complex thought, this constant fragmentation is torture. Night gives you what you need. Uninterrupted time. Long stretches where you can sink into a problem and actually think it through. Where you can follow one thread of thought to its conclusion without someone or something breaking your concentration. This is when you're actually productive in the ways that matter. You've probably noticed that your creative insights come at night. Solutions to problems that stumped you all day suddenly become clear at midnight. Ideas that eluded you in the office flow freely at 1 a.m. This isn't random. Your brain needs that quiet space to make connections, to process information in the background, to reach conclusions. There's also something about the darkness and stillness that removes inhibitions. During the day, you're performing. You're being the person other people expect you to be. You're managing your image, following social rules, staying within bounds. But at night, alone, you can actually be yourself. Your thoughts can go wherever they need to go. This is why so many artists, writers, scientists, and innovators are night owls. Their work requires going beyond conventional thinking. It requires exploration and experimentation and following unusual paths. You can't do that under the scrutiny of daylight and other people. You need the freedom and solitude that night provides. But people don't see it that way. They see someone who can't get up in the morning, someone who's tired during the day, someone who's not keeping normal hours. They see a problem that needs fixing. They don't understand that you're operating on a different schedule because your brain works differently. The 9-to-5 world wasn't built for people like you. It was built for average cognitive function and average needs. When you're forced into that schedule, you're constantly working against your natural rhythms. You're never at your best. You're always slightly off, slightly tired, slightly unable to access your full capabilities. This is why you resist it. Why you keep staying up late even though you know you'll be tired tomorrow. Because those late hours are when you're actually yourself. When your brain can do what it does best. When you feel alive and focused and capable. Trading that for being functional at 9 a.m. feels like a bad deal. And just like staying up late creates the environment you need for thinking, there's probably another aspect of your environment that people seriously misunderstand. 3. You're messy, organized chaos everywhere. Your desk is a disaster. Papers everywhere, books stacked in seemingly random piles, half-finished projects scattered around. Your room isn't much better. People look at this and see disorganization. They see someone who can't get their life together. But you know exactly where everything is. And there's a reason for that chaos. Einstein had a famous quote about this. If a cluttered desk is a sign of a cluttered mind, of what then is an empty desk a sign? He understood something that neat freaks don't. Physical organization and mental organization are not the same thing. In fact, they're often inversely related. Here's what's really going on. Your environment reflects your thought process. You're working on multiple things simultaneously. You have different projects, different ideas, different threads of exploration all happening at once. Having everything visible and accessible matters. You need to be able to see connections, grab what you need, move between different trains of thought quickly. When everything is put away neatly, it's hidden. Out of sight, out of mind. For most people, that's fine, because they're only thinking about one thing at a time anyway. But your brain doesn't work that way. You're juggling multiple complex ideas, and you need the physical environment to support that. The mess is actually a sophisticated external memory system. Those piles of papers, they're not random. Each pile represents a different project or area of interest. They're sorted by relevance and recency in ways that make perfect sense to you, but look like chaos to outsiders. You can find what you need because you remember the spatial relationships. That paper is in that pile near that book under those notes. This is called contextual memory, and highly intelligent people often rely on it heavily. Your brain encodes information along with environmental context. When you need to retrieve that information, the physical context helps trigger the memory. Moving everything around or organizing it properly actually makes it harder for you to find things. There's also the simple fact that tidying up takes time and energy that you'd rather spend on actual thinking and creating. You could spend an hour making your space look neat, or you could spend that hour working on something that matters. The choice is obvious. The mess doesn't bother you, so why prioritize appearance over substance? People who need everything neat are often that way because external chaos creates internal chaos for them. Their minds can't focus when their environment is messy. But your mind is different. External chaos doesn't affect your internal clarity. If anything, the variety and stimulation of a messy environment keeps your brain engaged. Studies have actually shown that messy environments promote creative thinking. When everything is too ordered and controlled, your brain slips into conventional patterns. But when there's some disorder, your brain has to make novel connections and think more flexibly. The mess literally enhances creativity. This drives organized people crazy, especially in shared spaces. They want to clean up your area. They want to impose their system. They genuinely think they're helping. But they're not. They're disrupting a system that works for you. They're forcing you into a mode of operation that suits their brain, not yours. You've probably tried to be neater. You've probably had periods where you organized everything properly, and you've probably noticed that you were less productive during those times, because you were spending energy on maintaining order instead of on actual work, and because the imposed structure didn't match how your brain naturally operates. The really successful geniuses understand this about themselves and design their lives accordingly. They create spaces where they can be messy without judgment. They resist pressure to conform to other people's organizational standards. They recognize that their environment needs to serve their cognition, not other people's aesthetics. And just like your physical space reflects your mental landscape, there's another aspect of how your mind works that people definitely don't understand. 4. You daydream constantly, lost in your own world. You're sitting in a meeting, and your mind wanders off. You're supposed to be listening to someone talk, but instead, you're thinking about something completely different. You're staring out the window, lost in thought, and someone has to say your name twice to get your attention. People think you're not paying attention. They think you're rude or distracted. They have no idea what's actually happening. Daydreaming has this reputation as a waste of time, zoning out, not being present, something to be corrected. Teachers hated it when you did it in class. Bosses don't like it in meetings. You're supposed to stay focused on what's happening right now, on what other people are saying, on the task immediately in front of you. But here's what research has discovered. Daydreaming isn't mental laziness. It's actually high-level cognitive processing. When your mind wanders, your brain is working through problems, making connections, processing information in the background. The parts of your brain that activate during daydreaming are the same parts associated with complex problem-solving and creativity. Think about when your mind wanders. It's usually not during engaging, challenging activities that hold your attention. It's during boring stuff, routine tasks, conversations that don't require your full mental capacity. Your brain has processing power left over, and instead of wasting it, it puts it to use on more interesting problems. This is called the default mode network, and it's incredibly active during daydreaming. This network is involved in imagination, thinking about the future, understanding other people's perspectives, and integrating information. When you zone out, this network lights up and starts making connections between disparate pieces of information. You've probably noticed that solutions often come to you when you're not actively working on a problem. You're in the shower, or driving, or staring out a window, and suddenly the answer appears. That's not magic. That's your brain working on the problem in the background while you're supposedly doing nothing. The daydreaming state allows this background processing to surface. Highly intelligent people tend to have very active default mode networks. Their brains are constantly working, constantly processing, constantly making connections. They can't just turn it off and focus solely on the present moment, especially when the present moment is something boring or simple that doesn't require their full attention. This is why you've probably been told you have attention problems. You struggle to focus on things that don't engage you. You drift off during conversations that aren't intellectually stimulating. You can't sit through boring meetings without your mind going elsewhere. People interpret this as a deficit, but it's not. It's your brain refusing to waste its capabilities on things that don't require them. When you are focused on something genuinely interesting or challenging, you can have incredible concentration. Hours can pass without you noticing. You enter flow states where you're completely absorbed. This proves you don't have an attention problem. You have a selective attention system that's optimized for complex, engaging tasks. The daydreaming also serves another function. It's how you explore possibilities. You run simulations in your head. You imagine different scenarios, different outcomes, different approaches. This mental experimentation is how you test ideas before investing time and resources in them. Most people don't do this as extensively because they don't think as far ahead or consider as many variables. Your inner world is rich and complex. You have entire conversations, debates, scenarios playing out in your head. This isn't escapism. This is sophisticated mental modeling. You're using your imagination to understand the world better, to prepare for different situations, to work through complex ideas that can't be easily addressed in the external world. People who don't have this active inner life don't understand it. To them, if you're not engaged with external reality, you're not doing anything. They don't realize that internal processing is work, that thinking is an activity, that your brain is actually more active when you're staring into space than when you're mindlessly following along with whatever's happening around you. This habit also connects to why you need downtime, why you can't be on all the time. Your brain needs those periods of apparently doing nothing to process everything it's taken in, to make connections, to consolidate learning. Without that daydreaming time, you'd be overwhelmed. And speaking of being overwhelmed, there's probably another habit that people really don't get about you. 5. You question everything, never accepting simple answers. Someone tells you something that everyone accepts as true, and your immediate response is, but why? You can't just accept information at face value. You need to understand the reasoning behind it, the evidence supporting it, the assumptions it's built on. People find this exhausting. You probably find it exhausting too, but you can't stop. Most people are comfortable with accepting things they're told, especially if it comes from authority, or if everyone else believes it. They hear something. It sounds reasonable. They move on. Their curiosity is satisfied by surface-level explanations. But your brain doesn't work that way. Every answer leads to more questions. This isn't stubbornness or being difficult. This is genuine intellectual curiosity, combined with the cognitive ability to see deeper layers. You recognize that simple explanations are often incomplete or misleading. You understand that reality is complex, and that first-order thinking rarely captures the full picture. When someone gives you an explanation, your brain automatically starts poking holes in it. Not because you want to be argumentative, but because you're testing it. You're looking for weaknesses, checking for logical consistency, considering alternative explanations. This is how you determine what's actually true versus what just sounds good. This drives people crazy. They give you an answer and think the conversation is done. But you're just getting started. Okay, but what about this? How do you account for that? What if we consider it from this angle? They think you're being difficult. You think you're being thorough. The problem is that most people's understanding of most topics is quite shallow. They know the standard explanation, the common wisdom, the thing everyone says, and that's enough for them. But it's not enough for you because you can immediately see the gaps and contradictions that they don't notice. This is actually a sign of high intelligence, the ability to think critically, to question assumptions, to dig deeper than surface explanations. Less intelligent people tend to be more certain about things because they don't see the complexity. They don't recognize how much they don't know. You do. You probably got in trouble for this as a kid. Teachers didn't appreciate you questioning their explanations. Parents got frustrated with your endless why questions. Other kids thought you were showing off or being annoying. But you weren't trying to be difficult. You genuinely needed to understand. This habit extends beyond just asking questions. You also challenge conventional wisdom. Things that everyone accepts as obviously true, you examine more carefully. Sometimes you discover that the common understanding is wrong or incomplete. Sometimes you just want to understand why people believe what they believe. This makes you unpopular in a lot of contexts. People don't like having their beliefs questioned. They take it personally. They think you're calling them stupid or attacking their identity. But you're not interested in people. You're interested in truth. You want to understand reality accurately, even if that means challenging comfortable assumptions. The interesting thing is that this questioning often leads you to unconventional conclusions. When you actually think things through deeply instead of accepting standard answers, you sometimes arrive at different places than most people. This can make you seem contrarian or weird, but really you're just following logic wherever it leads. This connects to all the other habits we've discussed. You talk to yourself because you're working through complex questions. You stay up late because that's when you can think deeply without interruption. You're messy because organizing takes time away from exploring ideas. You daydream because your brain is constantly processing questions. Everything connects. And all of this questioning, all this deep thinking, all this mental activity leads to one final habit that's absolutely essential. 6. You need time alone, craving isolation regularly. People want to hang out, and you just can't. You need to be alone, not because you don't like people, though sometimes you don't, but because social interaction is exhausting in a way that solitude isn't. You need regular periods of isolation to recharge, to think, to just exist without the drain of other people. This gets misinterpreted constantly. People think you're antisocial or depressed or that something's wrong. They take it personally when you decline invitations or cut conversations short. They don't understand that it's not about them. It's about you needing space to function properly. Here's what they don't get. Your brain is more active than most people's. You're processing more information, thinking more deeply, considering more angles. This requires energy, and social interaction requires even more energy on top of that. You have to manage the conversation, read social cues, moderate your responses, maintain appropriate engagement. It's work. For people with average intelligence, social interaction can actually be relaxing. It doesn't require much cognitive effort to have a simple conversation. They're not thinking several levels deep about implications and meanings. They're just chatting. It's easy for them. It's not easy for you. When you're alone, you can drop all of that. You don't have to perform. You don't have to translate your complex thoughts into simple, socially acceptable language. You don't have to slow down your thinking to match someone else's pace. You can just be yourself at full speed without constantly monitoring and adjusting. This is why highly intelligent people tend to be more introverted or at least need significant alone time, even if they're extroverted. Their cognitive style requires space. They need time to process, to think, to work through ideas without external interference. Other people's presence, even when welcome, is still a form of interference. You've probably noticed that after extended social interaction, even enjoyable interaction, you feel drained. You need recovery time. hours or sometimes days alone to feel like yourself again. This isn't weakness. This is your brain needing downtime after expending significant energy on social processing. The quality of your thinking suffers when you don't get enough alone time. You become foggy, irritable, unable to focus deeply. Your brain needs that solo space to function optimally. It's like a computer needing to close unnecessary programs to run important tasks. Other people are unnecessary programs in this analogy. This need for solitude also enables all your other habits. You can talk to yourself freely when alone. You can stay up late without someone complaining. You can be messy without judgment. You can daydream without interruption. You can question everything without having to justify yourself. Solitude is where you can be fully yourself. Society doesn't value this. There's this assumption that social connection is always good and isolation is bad. That spending time alone means you're lonely or missing out. But loneliness and solitude are completely different. You can be lonely in a crowd and perfectly content alone. Most people don't understand this distinction. You probably feel guilty about needing alone time. You probably try to force yourself to be more social. You accept invitations you don't want to accept and spend time with people when you'd rather be alone. And then you're miserable and exhausted and wondering what's wrong with you. Nothing's wrong with you. You're just trying to operate in a mode that doesn't suit your brain. The most successful geniuses throughout history have been people who recognized this need and protected their solitude fiercely. They created lives that gave them the space they needed. They didn't apologize for it or try to be someone they weren't. They understood that their work required isolation, and they prioritized it. This is the pattern that ties everything together. All 6 of these habits are ways that highly intelligent people create the conditions they need to think deeply and work effectively. They're not random quirks. They're adaptations. Your brain has figured out what it needs, and these habits are how you provide that. The talking to yourself gives you verbal processing. The late nights give you quiet time. The mess gives you contextual memory and creative stimulation. The daydreaming gives you background processing. The questioning gives you deeper understanding. And the solitude gives you space to do all of it without interference. So if you've been trying to fix these habits, trying to be more normal, trying to fit in better, maybe stop. Maybe these aren't problems to solve. Maybe they're features, not bugs. Maybe the reason you can't change them is because you're not supposed to. Maybe your brain knows what it needs better than society does. The world will keep telling you to wake up earlier, clean your desk, pay attention in meetings, accept simple answers, and be more social. The world is designed for average intelligence and average needs. But you're not average, and trying to force yourself into that mold just limits what you're capable of. Your weird habits aren't holding you back. They're what allow you to operate at your full potential. The question is whether you're going to keep apologizing for them or start recognizing them for what they are. Signs that your brain works differently because it works better. Signs that you're not broken or weird or wrong. Just exceptional in ways that most people don't understand. 6. You spend forever in the bathroom, phone in hand, lost in thought. People knock on the door asking if you're okay. You've been in there for 45 minutes, an hour, sometimes longer. You're not sick. You're not actually using the bathroom anymore. You're just sitting there with your phone, scrolling, thinking, existing in this weird private bubble that nobody else understands. This drives people absolutely crazy. They think you're being inconsiderate. They think you're wasting time. They make jokes about what you could possibly be doing in there for so long. But here's what they don't realize. The bathroom is the only truly private space most people have. It's the one place where nobody questions why you're alone. Think about it. If you go to your room and close the door for an hour, people wonder what's wrong. They interrupt, they knock, they want to know what you're doing. But the bathroom? That's sacrosanct. Nobody questions bathroom time. It's the perfect cover for what you actually need, which is uninterrupted alone time to think. Your brain doesn't stop working just because you sat down on the toilet. In fact, this might be one of the few moments in your day where you're truly alone with no expectations. No tasks waiting. No people demanding attention. No performance required. Just you, locked door, complete privacy. Your mind can finally wander freely. The phone gives you something to do with your hands while your brain processes. You're scrolling through articles, videos, social media, but you're not really focused on any of it. It's background noise while your subconscious works through problems. You're in that same daydreaming state we talked about earlier, just with a phone as a prop. This is why you lose track of time in there. You're not deliberately staying for an hour. You sit down, start thinking or scrolling, and suddenly way more time has passed than you realized. Because you entered a mental state where external time becomes irrelevant. Your brain was doing important processing work. People with high intelligence often need these mental breaks throughout the day. The constant demands of interacting with the world, making decisions, solving problems, it's exhausting. The bathroom becomes this refuge where you can decompress without anyone judging you for needing space. There's also something about the bathroom environment itself. It's small, enclosed, private. There's white noise from ventilation or water. The sensory input is minimal and consistent. For a brain that's constantly overstimulated by the complexity of the world, this simplified environment is actually soothing. You've probably noticed that some of your best ideas come to you in the bathroom. Solutions to problems you've been working on suddenly become clear. Creative insights hit you. This isn't coincidence. Your brain needed that quiet, pressure-free space to make connections. The bathroom provides it. This habit also ties into the other signs we've discussed. You're essentially creating a temporary isolation chamber, like the alone time we talked about. You're giving yourself space to think deeply without interruption. You might even be talking to yourself in there, working through problems verbally where nobody can hear you. The mess of your life doesn't exist in the bathroom. It's a clean slate, a neutral zone. There's something refreshing about that simplicity when your physical spaces everywhere else are cluttered with projects and ideas. The bathroom is the one place that's just functional, and that's weirdly freeing. Your late-night tendencies probably mean you spend even more time in there during those hours. When everyone's asleep and the house is quiet, the bathroom becomes even more of a sanctuary. You can sit there at 2 a.m., scrolling your phone, thinking about whatever, and nobody's around to question it. The questioning habit shows up here too. You're probably reading articles, going down rabbit holes, researching random topics that caught your interest. The bathroom time becomes learning time, exploration time, feeding your constant need to understand things more deeply. People joke about bringing their phone to the bathroom like it's a modern addiction. But for you, it's not about the phone. The phone is just the excuse. What you're really doing is taking necessary mental health breaks disguised as bathroom visits. You're creating space for your brain to breathe. This is actually a brilliant adaptation to a world that doesn't naturally provide the alone time you need. You can't just announce, "I need an hour of isolation," multiple times a day. People would think you're weird or antisocial. But, "I need to use the bathroom?" Nobody questions that. You've found a socially acceptable way to get what you need. The fact that you do this unconsciously, that you've naturally gravitated toward this behavior without thinking about why, shows your brain figuring out solutions to problems you might not have even consciously identified. You needed more private thinking time. The bathroom provided it. Problem solved. So when someone complains that you spend too long in the bathroom, what they're really complaining about is that you're taking time for yourself in one of the only ways society permits without explanation. They're annoyed that you've found a loophole that lets you be alone without having to justify it. And this connects back to everything else. All these habits, all these behaviors that seem weird or problematic to other people, they're actually sophisticated coping mechanisms. They're ways your highly intelligent brain has adapted to function in a world designed for average minds with average needs. You're not being weird in the bathroom. You're being smart. You're taking the space you need using the tools available to you. The phone, the locked door, the socially acceptable excuse. It's actually genius when you think about it. Finding privacy in plain sight. Creating thinking time that nobody can criticize. So, next time someone knocks on the door asking if you're okay, you can honestly say yes. You're more than okay. You're doing exactly what your brain needs. You're giving yourself the processing time that makes everything else possible. You're taking care of your mental requirements in one of the few ways that doesn't require explaining yourself to people who wouldn't understand anyway. The bathroom isn't just a bathroom for you, it's a thinking chamber, a decompression zone, a temporary escape pod from the demands of the world. And the fact that you instinctively created this for yourself, without anyone teaching you to do it, that's another sign right there. Your brain knows what it needs and finds ways to get it, even when society doesn't make it easy.